Welcome to the Art Museum of Southeast Texas. Here you will see the exhibition From the Vault, Tyler Museum of Art, on display from October 3rd, 2020 until February 28th of 2021. This exhibition features a selection of early Texas paintings and works on paper from the permanent collection of the Tyler Museum of Art, with a spotlight on early Texas artist and educator Coreen Mary Spellman. From the Vault also includes a notable selection of female artists whose work, until recently, has largely been omitted from the history books, including works by Cecilia Steinfeld, Rosalie Speed, Lucy Harris Locke, and Clyde Connell. Artworks by Jerry Bywaters and William Lester, who were members of the Dallas Nine group, as well as David Atkiss, Kelly Fearing, Joseph Glasgow, Ansel Noon, and Valton Tyler are also on display. From the Vault is an exhibition series which enhances the relationship between AMSET and the Tyler Museum of Art. As part of our new partnership initiative, AMSET and the TMA swapped artworks from their permanent collections. From the Vault, Art Museum of Southeast Texas was on view at the Tyler Museum of Art in the fall of 2020 and included contemporary Texas paintings and works on paper from AMSET's permanent collection. Here on display on the title wall of the show, you see Wedding Ring Quilt by Scott Gentling. Scott and his twin brother Stuart studied under Walter Stumpfig and watercolorist John McCoy. Both Scott and his brother Stuart are known for their attention to detail, as seen here in Wedding Ring Quilt. The next artwork you see is a lithograph and ink on paper by David Atkiss titled Two Men on a Beach from 1954. Atkiss studied painting in Paris with modern master Fernand Léger. He is most well known for his large-scale sculptures. David enhances the lithograph by adding ink lines and washes by hand. Here you see Red River, which is a painting of oil on paper by Carl Umlauf. It is from 1958. Carl Umlauf grew up in Austin, Texas, where he graduated from the University of Texas. His artwork is found in over 40 museums and public collections. Our next artwork is untitled. It is a watercolor and ink on paper by Otis Marion Dozier. Otis was a member of the Texas regionalist artists known as the Dallas Nine and paints with a characteristic style using brilliant colors and strong forms. He often incorporated the struggles of daily life for farmers during the Great Depression. Here we see a landscape examining the lines and shadows of a mountain range. The next four artworks are lithographs by Coreen Mary Spellman. This piece is from circa 1950 and is titled House Under Construction. Spellman was born in Forney, Texas in 1905. At an early age, she moved to Dallas and studied under Vivian Onspaugh, who attended the College of Industrial Arts, which is now the Texas Women's University. This lithograph, also by Coreen Mary Spellman, is titled El Campo Santo, San Jose, New Mexico. From 1925 to 1974, Spellman taught painting, illustration, and drawing at her alma mater in Denton, Texas, as well as the Dallas Museum of Fine Arts School. This piece is titled Sun on the Kitchen Floor and is from 1947. In it, you can see Coreen's use of strong shadows and lines. Our last Coreen Mary Spellman mezzotint, is titled Underpass from circa 1945. Compared to Sun on the Kitchen Floor, it is a lot softer and has deeper shadows. Our next work is a collage on paper mounted on board by Clyde Connell. It is titled Sundance, and it is circa 1969. Clyde Connell was a self-taught artist, primarily known for her work in Louisiana. Her abstract works, which are largely expressionist in style, were often created from wood, iron, paper, and found objects. Next to Connell's piece, we see an oil on board work titled Masks by William Lester. It is circa 1946. Lester was a well-known artist who lived and worked in Dallas. He exhibited highly praised work at both the New York World's Fair and the Golden Gate Exposition in 1939. In 1942, Lester moved to Austin to join the fledgling art department at the University of Texas, becoming chairman 10 years later from 1952 to 1954. He retired in 1972. This painting is titled Artificial Respiration First Aid Class. It is oil on canvas and dated 1942. It was created by Lucy Harris Locke. Locke was a muralist, painter, illustrator, critic, writer, and poet. She lived in many places around Texas and in Mexico before settling in Corpus Christi. After 1944, Locke served as an art critic for the Corpus Christi Caller-Times. She was chairman of the Corpus Christi Art Foundation in 1944 through 1946. Locke painted murals in the Corpus Christi Civic Center. This oil on canvas painting is titled The Yellow Fire Plug. It is dated 1963 and was created by Otis Lumpkin. Otis Lumpkin was a respected scholar, philosopher, historian, writer, and artist. He was a professor of art and chairman of the art department at Angelo State University in San Angelo, Texas for over 20 years. The Yellow Fire Plug depicts a beautifully lit street scene set in Texarkana. This oil on masonite painting is titled Old Man River, Vicksburg by Rosalie Speed. It is dated circa 1938. Rosalie Speed, a well-known Dallas artist during the 1930s and 40s, grew up in the Oak Lawn area of Dallas, later attending Southern Methodist University and the College of Industrial Arts, now Texas Women's University, in Denton. As with many other artists in Dallas, she attended Miss Onspaugh's School of Art. Beginning around 1929, Speed exhibited frequently with well-known artists of the day, including Otis Dozier, Jerry Bywaters, William Lester, and Florence McClung. Her scenes of everyday life in the South and Southwest, painted in crisp and joyful colors and reminiscent of folk art, hold a distinct place among other works by major Texas regionalists in the first half of the 20th century. This ink and watercolor on paper is titled San Fernando Cemetery from 1937. It was created by artist Cecilia Steinfeld. Born in Montello, Wisconsin, Cecilia Steinfeld began her 60-year career at the Whitty Museum in San Antonio, Texas, in 1936 as an art instructor. She earned the title of the First Lady of Texas Art through her many exhibits as curator emeritus and her articles on Texas artwork. This acrylic on panel painting is titled Landscape with Victorian Cottage and Gazebo. It is dated 1968 and was created by artist Ansel Edward Noon. Born on April 27, 1928 in Seymour, Texas, Ansel grew up in several West Texas communities. His early art education included studying at the Dallas Art Institute at age 15 and attending summer workshops under artists such as Don Kingman and Alexander Hogue. He served in the United States Army Reserve until his honorable discharge. That same year, he moved to Palestine, Texas, and set up his studio, where he continued to paint. This gouache and ink on paper painting is titled Sketch of an Owl by Kelly Fearing. It is dated 1964. Kelly Fearing was part of the Fort Worth Circle, which was a group of artists working in Fort Worth that were moving beyond realism and the agrarian subject matter of American regionalism, which dominated Texas art in the 1930s and 40s. Fearing and his Fort Worth cohorts were the first artists in the state to respond in a significant way to European artists such as Picasso, Braque, Klee, Modigliani, Miro, and Dubuffet. Here we see a lithograph by Jerry Bywaters titled Gargantua. It is dated 1935. Jerry Bywaters studied under Olin Travis and Thomas M. Stell at the Dallas Art Institute, where he went on to teach from 1932 to 1937. He became director of the Dallas Museum of Fine Arts, serving from 1943 through 1964, and in 1978 published 75 Years of Art in Dallas, the history of the Dallas Art Association and the Dallas Museum of Fine Arts. Our next work on paper was made with pencil, Conte crayon, and ink, and is titled Abandoned from 1950. It was made by artist William Lester. Lester was a well-known artist who lived and worked in Dallas. He exhibited highly praised work at both the New York World's Fair and the Golden Gate Exposition in 1939. This ink on paper is titled Freezing Point. It's dated 1971 and was created by Volton Tyler. Volton was born in 1944 in Texas City, and he is a self-taught artist who made work primarily for himself, citing visions from an epiphany he had at the age of 16. In 1947, the Texas City disaster occurred in the port of Texas City, the deadliest industrial accident in the United States history, and one of history's largest non-nuclear explosions, ultimately killing at least 581 people. Although he had only just celebrated his 3rd birthday, Tyler recalled vivid memories of explosions and continued to experience visions related to the event throughout his life. This last work is Cassian and ink on paper. It is titled Yellow Animal and dated 1955. It was created by artist Joseph Glasgow. Joseph Glasgow was born in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, and grew up in Tyler, Texas. After graduating from the University of Texas at Austin, he enlisted in the United States Army during World War II, after which he studied at the Portsmouth Art School in Bristol, England, and the School of Painting and Sculpture in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. And finally, at the Art Students League of New York. While in New York, Glasgow became part of a group of painters, including Jackson Pollock, who were exploring abstract art.